Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast.
Today we're joined by Eike Cordts, who leads Rottendorf's early stage development initiatives in North America. Rottendorf Pharma is a German contract development and manufacturing organisation with nearly a century of expertise in oral solid dosage forms. Now is a particularly interesting time in Rottendorf's evolution, having grown from 800 to 1,400 employees over the past decade. In this episode, we'll discuss Rottendorf's exciting new partnership for Phase 1 and 2 development, how this traditional German CDMO is modernising its brand and capabilities to meet evolving market demands, and what transatlantic collaborations mean for pharmaceutical companies seeking integrated solutions from early clinical stages through commercial production. Eike, thank you for joining me. So Rottendorf just announced a new partnership with a Canadian company called Corealis, focused on Phase 1 and 2 development. Can you tell us what drove this strategic decision?
Yeah, this is correct. And one aspect that drove this decision was a shift in how pharmaceutical companies select their development partners today. So what we see is that there's an advantage if you already define your long-term manufacturing strategy during early phases in the development. So being involved early on has become increasingly important for us, or if you want to create real value later in the life cycle. For this partnership with Corealis, there were three main drivers for us. The first one was the proximity to North America. Early stage development moves very fast and API material is often limited. So having a physical presence in North America, where a lot of the development initiatives are ongoing, allows much closer collaboration, faster decision-making, simplified logistics, and the possibility for customers to be on site during the development, but also during the clinical trial manufacturing activities. And we also see this in our current business, that this is very important to get this hands-on knowledge. Second, we found a very strong strategic and cultural match with Corealis. They share a similar scientific mindset, high quality standards, and collaborative way of working. And similar to Rottendorf Pharma, they focus entirely on oral solid dosage form development. And both companies consider themselves as expert in this field. And the third driver was that aligning development strategy early creates a real competitive advantage. So when scalability and late stage requirements are already considered during Phase 1 and 2, you avoid gaps later on during late stage development and commercialization. So all in all, that leads to a smoother tech transfer, fewer redevelopment steps, and essentially timeline savings for our customers.
So how does this partnership complement Rottendorf's existing capabilities in later stage development and manufacturing?
Yeah, it's highly complementary because the capabilities are almost sequential rather than overlapping. Both Corealis and Rottendorf Pharma are fully focused on OSD development. At Rottendorf, we bring nearly 100 years of experience in OSD development and manufacturing. Commercialization, scale-up, and supply of tablets and capsules are deeply embedded in our DNA. Corealis has always specialized in early phase OSD development. So from a technical perspective, we are very closely aligned and essentially speak the same language from day one. Rottendorf contributes a very deep technical understanding of OSD development, and we have the ability to offer almost the full spectrum of key OSD technologies. So from conventional processes like direct compression, Gerthi's roller compaction, fluid bed granulation, high shear granulation, to capabilities in specialized dosage forms, including pediatric formulations, pellet systems, mono bilayer tablets, and modified release technologies. And in addition, of course, we now also offer advanced manufacturing technologies like HME, which is needed for poorly soluble APIs. Corealis again focus on preclinical Phase 1 and Phase 2 formulation development. And especially in these phases, speed, flexibility, and scientific iteration are critical. Then, as programs mature, Rottendorf takes over the later stage development. and the responsibility for scale-up validation and commercial manufacturing, with focus on process robustness and regulatory reliability as the main priorities. So again, in summary, rather than combining unrelated capabilities, we are really connecting two OSD experts with focus on different stages of the product lifecycle. This creates a seamless pathway from first in human studies all the way to global supply.
Really interesting. So you're sort of creating that integrated CDMO approach from beginning to
That's
end.
the idea.
And as you mentioned, Rottendorf has been in business for almost 100 years, 98 years, if my research is correct. That's remarkable longevity in this industry. How has the company evolved to stay relevant as customer needs have changed over time?
Yeah, I think the key reason is that Rottendorf has always evolved around service and long-term partnerships with the customers. So we have seen many customers switching to Rottendorf from other providers because they are looking for a higher level of scientific expertise combined with a very strong service mindset. For us, the customer truly comes first, not only operationally, but also in how we design processes, make decisions, and build long-term collaborations. One unique aspect behind this culture is actually our ownership structure. So Rottendorf is fully owned by the Rottendorf Foundation, which has charitable goals and is the sole shareholder of the company. The foundation's mission is to ensure a healthy, sustainable company that provides stable employment for its people. And this setup allows us to reinvest heavily into our staff and new technologies. It also enables fast decision-making and a strong focus on long-term strategy rather than really the short-term profit optimization. And we saw in the past that this approach is very attractive for a broad customer base, from US biotech startups that benefit from the deep oral solid dosage form expertise, all the way to large pharmaceutical companies that value reliability and the high level of service we provide. At the same time, staying relevant requires continuous investment into new technologies. And throughout our history, we have consistently invested in expanding our technical capabilities to meet the changing industry needs. In many ways, our longevity comes from combining stability through our foundation ownership with continuous innovation and strong customer-first mindset.
Well, interesting. And I understand you recently underwent a complete rebranding. What prompted that decision? What does this sort of new identity represent?
Yeah, that's correct. And it was actually the first full rebranding since the company was founded. So it was
in 100 years.
It was a very important step for us. The goal was not just a new visual appearance, to translate our values, mindset, and vision into a clear brand identity. At its core, the brand reflects what has defined Rottendorf Pharma for generations, which is enabling meaningful ideas reliably. Reliability, long-term partnership, and tailored solutions have always been central to how we work. It also represents the balance between tradition and looking forward. Our headquarters in Germany, in Ennigerloh, Germany, remains the origin of our values. And as a foundation-owned company, we are strongly rooted, but always open for innovations and continuous development. In summary, the new brand connects our heritage with the future, from our home base in Germany to a global perspective.
Yeah, interesting. That makes sense. And so back to the partnership with Corealis Pharma, from a customer perspective, what does it actually enable that wasn't possible before?
Yeah, from a customer perspective, the partnership mainly enables continuity across development stages without taking away flexibility. In the past, companies often needed different vendors for early clinical development and later stage commercialization. That typically meant complex tech transfers, knowledge gaps, and sometimes delays when projects moved from phase 1 or phase 2 into later stage development. With this partnership, customers can start early development within an ecosystem that already considers the long-term manufacturing strategy. That creates better alignment from the beginning, smoother scale up, and potentially significant timeline savings. At the same time, it's important to emphasize that this is not a binding setup. So customers remain completely free to adapt their strategy if a project evolves in an unexpected direction. And we all know this happens quite often in early development. So the partnership simply provides a ready and well-aligned pathway forward, not a lock-in. Essentially, we give customers a seamless route from early clinical work to commercialization if they choose it, while preserving full flexibility along the way.
Sure. And I know many pharmaceutical companies obviously are focused on supply chain resilience right now. How does having capabilities on both sides of the Atlantic address those concerns?
Yeah, supply chain resilience is certainly an important topic, especially today. But for us, the main focus of this partnership is actually technical expertise and delivering a superb service level to our customers. Mm-hmm. What the transatlantic setup mainly enables is closer collaboration during development, being near customers, supporting fast decision-making, and ensuring strong scientific expertise throughout the project lifecycle. And of course, having capabilities on both sides of the Atlantic also contributes to supply chain resilience, particularly for clinical supplies. And the regional proximity can simplify logistics and reduce risk during these early clinical phases. That said, supply chain resilience is not new for Rottendorf. Over the past years, we've already invested significantly in building a strong and reliable supplier network with qualified backup options in place. And we're actually quite proud of the robustness we have achieved so far. At the end, the partnership now adds geographic flexibility, but it builds on already resilient supply chain structures. And as I mentioned before, the main value remains scientific excellence and a very high level of customer service.
And so what made Canada specifically an attractive partner location?
Yeah, it turned to be a very good match. Canada offers a very strong combination of scientific talent, regulatory alignment with both FDA and EMA expectations, and also what was important for us, proximity to the US biotech ecosystem. It also provides a collaborative and innovative environment, which complements our own development and commercialization strength in Germany. We found that geographically and culturally, the two locations fit together extremely well.
Walk me through the technical handoff then. How does a project transition from phase 1 and 2 work with your Canadian partner to then later stage development within Rottendorf?
Yeah, the goal with this partnership is actually to avoid thinking about it as a traditional handoff. Because the collaboration starts much earlier. Corealis takes on the operational lead during early stage development, building up on their core strength. So usually in phase 1 or in pre-formulation, phase 1 and phase 2 formulation, where speed and scientific iteration are essential. However, already during these early phases, Rottendorf experts are already involved in the project and ensure that scalability and manufacturability are considered. And for crucial development steps or clinical trial manufacturing, Rottendorf staff will also be present on site at Corealis to build the first-hand process knowledge. Then naturally, as projects mature, the project leadership transitions to Rottendorf for later stage development. So let it be in phase 3. And then also for scale-up validation and preparation of commercial manufacturing. The quality expectations and systems will be aligned from the beginning, and certain activities such as analytical method validation can already start in parallel if beneficial. So we see these activities oftentimes take a long time and also cause delays to timelines. And with this partnership, we are able to start some activities already in parallel, which will then benefit the timeline. Each program is managed by a joint execution and governance team, ensuring both organizations work closely together throughout the entire development then.
Great. So I think you clearly highlighted the general benefits of this partnership. Would you be able to run us through the timeline of a typical development project at Rottendorf Pharma and how the partnership with Corealis would now sort of benefit that timeline?
Of course, each project is different and development strategies and timelines vary depending on the molecule, the formulation approach, and the data available from earlier development phases. But in general, when a project enters Rottendorf after phase 2, we routinely perform startup activities such as document review, risk assessment, and sourcing of relevant excipients and analytical materials. And even if comprehensive development data reports are available, everybody knows only so much can be learned from documentation alone. So hands-on experience is inevitable, which is why we usually run a technical batch just to understand how much further development work is really needed to make the product ready for successful GMP phase 3 clinical trial manufacturing. Based on these initial results, the development strategy is then defined and executed, covering formulation and process optimization, as well as the analytical work required to support CTM manufacturing and release analysis. Considering best case that the formulation and process, as well as initial analytical methods, are in good shape, a key aspect of the timeline at this stage is analytical readiness. Even when assay purity, dissolution, and other relevant methods already exist, they usually need to be transferred, verified, and later validated once GMP activities are foreseen. And depending on the complexity of the analytical methods, I've seen that validation activities can become a time-limiting step and may take several weeks. This is exactly one example where the partnership with Corealis can provide a clear advantage. Because development approaches, analytical methods, and quality expectations are already aligned during earlier phases, certain activities can be prepared in parallel or even be skipped. Rottendorf scientists are already familiar with the product and analytical methods through the early collaboration, reducing the typical time needed for getting familiar with the methods and transfer. As a result, the transition into later stage development becomes more efficient, reduces waiting times between activities, and enables a smoother path towards successful GMP clinical trial manufacturing and release. Based on my experience, timeline savings of several weeks or even months are feasible in this setup.
Let's talk about Rottendorf's growth for a minute. So as I mentioned before, you've grown from 800 employees to over 1,400 in the past 10 years, which seems like astronomical growth to me. How has that growth shaped your approach to partnerships and customer service?
Yeah, the growth is a result of, let's say, the successful journey that Rottendorf has taken in the past years. And it has always been guided by one principle: scaling without losing our identity. So even though we grew quite a bit, our ownership structure as a foundation-owned company still ensures agility in decision-making. And we are able to take long-term decisions quickly and remain focused on sustainable development rather than the short-term optimization. At the same time, we have stayed very clear about our core strengths: oral solid dosage form manufacturing. And rather than diversifying broadly, we continuously expand our expertise and technologies within this field, deepening the capabilities where we can create the most value for our customers. We never wanted to grow for the sake of growing. The increase in people was driven by one goal: to support our customers better. We intentionally invested in scientific expertise, project management, and technical capabilities to provide stronger guidance throughout the development lifecycle. And despite becoming larger, we have focused on maintaining a partnership mindset, so the customer remains the center of everything we do here. In essence, growth allowed us to broaden our capabilities while preserving the agility, focus, and service culture that defines Rottendorf Pharma.
So it's focusing on leveraging your sort of specialisms and really kind of riding on that. So let's look at the North American market specifically for a second. What are you sort of hearing from pharma companies about the biggest challenges they're facing in development and manufacturing right now?
Yeah, across North America and also from our North American customers, we consistently hear three main themes. So the first is speed to clinic and market are becoming tighter than ever, and companies are looking for partners who can move quickly without compromising on quality or regulatory expectations. The second theme is flexibility. Development plans change constantly, especially in early and mid-stage programs. So companies need partners who can react quickly and adapt processes, timelines, and manufacturing approaches without creating other delays. Being able to respond in a flexible and solution-oriented way has become a critical success factor for us. And third, reliable capacity. This is clear. After recent global disruptions, companies place strong emphasis on partners who can ensure long-term supply and execution. And again, our strategy, combining high-quality development with strong industrial expertise and a high server level, is designed to directly address these needs.
As you look ahead, maybe over the next sort of few years, how do you see this partnership with Corealis evolving? And what does that mean for Rottendorf's position in the global CDMO landscape?
We see this partnership as the beginning of a long-term collaboration rather than a fixed setup right now. So over the coming years, we want to deepen the technical collaboration, strengthen the scientific exchange, and further align our procedures, quality expectations, and also the operational processes. So the goal is to operate increasingly as one integrated team from a customer's perspective. And in addition to growing this partnership, we will also be working on expanding the current or already existing development capabilities at our German headquarters, where we continue the diversification of the technical capabilities and also continue the work towards handling of more potent compounds. In summary, this all creates a seamless pathway from early clinical development to commercial manufacturing and strengthens Rottendorf Pharma's position as a global oral solid dosage CDMO.
Oh, well, Eike, thanks a lot for talking to me today. I look forward to continuing to watch Rottendorf's growth.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.